Hi, my name's Venna. They told everyone I didn't care about weddings, that I wasn't the type to wear dresses or fall in love. They spent my wedding fund on my twin sister's ceremony, deleted me from every family photo, and then used the venue I designed, my design, to celebrate her like I never existed. But the worst part? They didn't scream. They didn't shove me out the door. They just quietly erased me. So tell me, what do you do when the people who raised you build an entire life on top of your silence? And what happens when you stop letting them? I arrived at my parents' house at 6:42 a.m., luggage in tow, eyes burning from the sleepless red-eye out of Seattle. The sky was still gray, heavy with that stale early-morning California quiet. The front door creaked open when I twisted the knob, unlocked, as always. I stepped inside, dragging my suitcase over the warped threshold. No one came to greet me. Voices echoed from the kitchen, laughter, coffee brewing. Someone clinked a spoon against a ceramic mug. I followed the sound. My father was standing at the counter, buttering toast. He glanced up, blinked once, then mumbled, "Oh, you made it," before going back to his plate, like I was the guy from Amazon dropping off a package. In the corner, Delaney was surrounded. Her friends, our mother, even Aunt Gina from Fresno had made it early. They were fawning over swatches of napkin colors and bridesmaid dress samples. It was like walking into someone else's birthday party uninvited, even though I'd been listed on the invitation. Technically, Delaney saw me, smiled faintly. "You look tired," she said. Not welcome. Not glad you're here. Just a reminder that I didn't look fresh enough to be camera ready. I dropped my bag by the hallway table, the thud barely audible over the chorus of admiration circling my sister. I didn't speak, just nodded once and moved toward the guest room. It still smelled like cedar and dust. The rest of the day blurred into small talk and long silences. I kept my distance, doing my best not to hover near Delaney or Mom too long. Everything I said seemed to land with a thud. There was always a better story to pivot to: Delaney's spa expansion, her upcoming honeymoon, or how her fiancé treats her like royalty. After dinner, the wedding planner, a woman named Ray, who looked like she moonlighted as a talk show host, arrived with the official itinerary. Everyone huddled into the living room. I sat on the far end of the sectional, legs crossed, watching Mom flip through the papers like they were gospel. "Welcome remarks, Mr. Kane," Ray announced. "Maid of honor speech, Callie Jensen." I waited for the next line. There wasn't one. No reading, no toast, no thank you from the sister who'd once stolen my toys and my passwords, and now, apparently, my wedding fund. No role at all. "Did you need me for anything?" I asked, keeping my voice flat, neutral. "Oh," Ray said, blinking. "I was told you wouldn't be involved directly in the program." "By who?" "It's just simpler this way," Mom chimed in, smiling too tightly. "We didn't want to put pressure on you." Pressure. That word did a lot of lifting in this family. I folded my napkin with precision, corner by corner, and laid it down on the armrest. Later that night, I sat stiffly on the edge of my old twin bed. Yes, still the same bed from high school, watching the walls around me. All the old posters and trophies that once hung there had been replaced with polished frames of Delaney's high school awards. My own things? Disappeared, packed into bins and shoved into the attic, if they even still existed. The ceiling fan spun lazily above me, barely moving the heavy air. I opened my laptop, stared at the screen. My inbox was full, but I wasn't reading emails. I was looking for something else, something that hadn't yet formed a name. Downstairs, they were playing a slideshow, Delaney's childhood journey for the welcome dinner. I could hear the oohs and ahs through the vents. After a few minutes, I wandered down and stood at the edge of the living room, a photo of her blowing out candles, another with her holding a swim meet trophy, then middle school, then senior prom. I waited. Nothing. Not a single picture with both of us. None of the moments we were dressed up like matching princesses. None of the awkward dance recitals we endured side by side. Just Delaney. Just her. Shining. Alone. Were there no pictures with both of us? I asked, keeping my tone even. Mom didn't look up from her wine. You always hated the camera, remember? I did remember, but not the way she meant. I remembered getting pushed out of frame, being told, let your sister have this moment. That wasn't hate, that was training. I didn't argue. I stood there until the slideshow ended. No one noticed I never sat down. Back in the bedroom, I turned off the overhead light and let the laptop screen glow across my face. I scrolled through old emails from my firm, checked a few investment dashboards, barely reading. Then I opened a blank note. I typed one sentence. Not again. Then another. Not this time. I closed the lid. I didn't sleep, not really. I just lay there, eyes open, watching the ceiling twist itself into a mess of imaginary shapes. They bled into each other, lines that tried to become something but never did. My mind wouldn't settle. It buzzed with static, replaying everything, picking at memories like a scab that refuses to close. Sometime around midnight, the stillness grew too loud. I slipped out from under the covers. The guest bed creaked like it knew I didn't belong there. The room was too warm and too quiet, the air thick with old perfume and forgotten expectations. I stepped into the hallway, where that damn wall clock ticked off kilter, always just a beat behind. Even its rhythm was off in this house. I didn't know where I was going, just that I needed out. Not out of the house entirely, not yet, but away. Somewhere untouched by the chaos upstairs. Somewhere that didn't wear Delaney's fingerprints like fresh paint. I grabbed an old hoodie from the back of a chair and padded downstairs, barefoot and quiet. The garage door protested as I pushed it open, the hinges groaning like they hadn't been loved in years. A cold draft greeted me, sharp against my legs. The air out there smelled like oil, rust, and dust, forgotten summers, and half-finished projects. No candles. No eucalyptus linen spray. Just truth. It was the only space in the house that hadn't been remodeled or rebranded. No Pinterest-perfect shelves or curated photo walls. Just old boxes stacked like relics, tools rusted at the edges, and shelves littered with junk from 3 decades of, we might need this someday. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe nothing. Maybe something to prove that once, just once, someone saw me. Really saw me. Not the backup daughter. Not the you're so independent default. Just Venna. I brushed past a pile of winter coats, ducked beneath an old tarp, and there it was. Tucked in the far corner like a secret. A faded trunk with peeling edges, and a handwritten label half faded into the cardboard. Venna. Attic? My breath caught. I pulled it out, slow and careful, the way you do when something feels sacred. A puff of dust billowed up as I wiped my sleeve across the top. The latch stuck for a second, then gave with a pop. The lid creaked open. The scent hit instantly. A mix of aged cardboard, old wood, and that familiar note of floral soap. Grandma's favorite, the kind she bought in wrapped bars from the farmer's market. It smelled like Saturdays in quiet kindness. On top, folded neatly, was a stack of old blankets. Beneath them, tucked like a treasure, was a photo album, yellowed at the corners. Soft leather cover. I set it aside with reverence. Below it lay something wrapped in faded cotton. A bundle. Light in my hands. I unwrapped it slowly, like peeling open a memory. A doll, not plastic, not store-bought. Handmade. Every stitch was deliberate. Her yarn hair was a warm brown, and her boots were tiny felt things sewn on with care. But that wasn't what got me. It was her dress, or rather, the name embroidered across it. Venna. My name, spelled right, centered, proud. I stared at it for what felt like forever. I couldn't remember the last time I saw my name written that way on something that mattered. Not Vina, not V, not Delaney's sister, just me. And beneath the doll, another surprise. An envelope, yellowed, still sealed. My heart knew what it was before my fingers even touched it. Grandma's handwriting, clean, sharp, impossibly elegant. Even her cursive had intention. I sat down, right there on the cold concrete floor, back against the wall. My legs folded up to my chest, and I cracked the envelope open with care. The letter was short, but it stopped time. I know this family forgets you more than they should, but I never did. I saw you. I always did. This fund is for your wedding, yours alone. Promise me you'll use it for something that belongs to you. I didn't cry. The ache was too old for tears. It lived deeper than that, in places where grief dries out and becomes something more like endurance. I folded the letter back up, carefully, like it might break if I wasn't gentle. Then I held the doll tight against my chest. She was small, soft, but solid. And she had my name. A name someone thought was worth stitching in thread. Something shifted inside me. Not peace, not forgiveness, but maybe, just maybe, recognition. The feeling of being quietly affirmed, of someone having seen me when I wasn't loud enough to demand it. I stayed there a while. The garage was cold, but it didn't bother me. It was honest in a way the rest of the house wasn't. No framed lies, no polished stories. Eventually, I crept back inside. The hallway was silent. I passed the closed doors. Mom and Dad's room breathing with soft snores. Delaney's sealed tight behind the hum of a white noise machine. Theirs were the sounds of people who slept easily, unburdened. My room hadn't changed much. Just the mattress felt smaller, the walls closer in. I set the doll gently on the windowsill and wiped the dust from her face with the hem of my sleeve. The moonlight caught the silver thread in her name, made it glow like it knew how much I needed that shimmer. I slipped the letter beneath my pillow. Its weight grounded me more than any apology ever could. My eyes swept the bookshelf before I lay down. Delaney's trophies still lined hers. Cheer captain, volunteer of the year, entrepreneur feature in the local news. Mine, still empty. And that was okay. Tonight, I had something better than plaques. I had a letter, a doll, a piece of proof stitched in thread that said I was here. I mattered. I wasn't just the girl in the background of Delaney's highlight reel. They'd spent so long carving me out of the picture. But Grandma? She left something behind to make sure I never disappeared completely. Morning light crept in through the slats of the blinds, uninvited. It spread across the ceiling in thin strips, warming nothing. I blinked against it, dry-eyed and exhausted, my body still but my thoughts in constant motion. Sleep had stayed away, too smart to hang around someone like me, with a brain that never stops looping what-ifs. I lay there for a while, arms across my chest like a corpse, listening to the old house groan and creak. It had its own kind of language, this house, familiar but uninterested in comfort. A floorboard shifted, pipes hummed faintly, and from downstairs came the low murmur of conversation, the occasional clink of dishes, and the high, bright lilt of laughter. The kind you can only pull off when you're not worried who isn't laughing with you. When I finally made my way down, the kitchen was already alive. My mother was by the counter, pouring orange juice into tall glasses like we were in some magazine shoot. Delaney sat at the table, scrolling on her phone, her hair curled and face made up like every day was prom. Dad had the paper spread wide in front of him, like he was waiting for a time machine to bring back Walter Cronkite. They all looked up when I walked in. Nobody smiled. Nobody said good morning. Not even a nod. Just a flick of the eyes, and then back to whatever version of normal they were committed to upholding. I sat at the far end of the table, the chair cold even through the fabric of my sweatpants. Mom slid a mug toward me, her gesture casual, the kind of act people think covers entire years of distance. "Coffee's fresh," she offered, like she was doing me a favor. Like a warm drink fixes something as fundamental as being ignored. The conversation barely paused. They were deep in the logistics of table centerpieces and whether peonies would hold up in humid weather. I listened without listening, the mug warm against my palms. Then Mom just said it. No warning, no buffer. We ended up using the fund Marta left. It covered the photographer and Delaney's gown, she said, flipping through a catering invoice with the disinterest of someone reading parking regulations. I went still. The fund? I asked, too softly. My fingers clenched around the mug. You mean my wedding fund? She looked up at me, blinking like I'd asked about the weather on Neptune. Oh, honey, she said, tone sweetened by long practice. You were always so busy with work. We figured, why let it just sit there? No apology, no acknowledgement that it was meant for me. Just logistics, like she was explaining how she donated an extra can of soup. Dad cleared his throat without looking up. Delaney's doing most of the planning herself. She deserves something nice. Deserves. That word hit me square in the chest, sharp as glass. I leaned back in the chair, trying to stay calm. Why didn't anyone ask me? Delaney looked up then. Her mascara was perfect. Her expression wasn't. Because Mom said you wouldn't mind. You've always been more logical than romantic. Logical. That's how they've always labeled me. Efficient, low maintenance. The one who didn't ask for much because she knew not to. Mom nodded, like Delaney had proved her point. You don't even wear dresses, Venna. You've never seemed like the wedding type. And there it was. The truth behind all the smiles and casual indifference. I wasn't the kind of woman worth planning for. I wasn't the kind they imagined walking down an aisle. Because I didn't play the part, didn't fit the frame. It didn't matter that it was never about the dress or the flowers or the cake. It was about the gesture. The fact that Grandma Marta, quiet and sharp as she was, had seen something in me. Enough to leave something behind. A small reserve of hope for a future celebration. And now it was gone. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words inside me weren't safe. I stood, walked over to the sink, and rinsed my mug with more force than necessary. Water splashed, dripped. Silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of the faucet. Venna, Mom said gently, don't make this into a thing. I turned to her, my voice flat. I'm not making it anything. You already did. And then I walked out. Upstairs, in the old guest room, I paced. I didn't know what else to do. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the doll on the windowsill, the one with the faded yellow dress and the hand-stitched name sewn across her chest. My name, the kind of gift you only get if someone really sees you. I picked up my laptop and opened the folder marked West Bridge Reports. My company's quarterly statement sat at the top, highlighted. I clicked it open. There it was. Our holdings in the luxury venue group, just acquired. We're already appreciating. I switched to my email and began typing, requesting updated ownership documents. Urgent. Sent. Then I sat there, staring at the screen's black reflection. I could see my face in it. Eyes tired, mouth set hard. The same expression I wore at 8 years old, watching Delaney's birthday unfold like a parade, while I stood in the back with a plastic fork and a reused gift bag. Let her have her moment, they said. It's her day. It was always her day. Even now, when the one thing meant for me could have been a quiet act of respect, they turned it into another spotlight for her. But this time, I wouldn't be the one left standing in the shadows. They could keep their photo booth and their monogrammed napkins. I didn't need a gown to make a statement. I had leverage, and this time, I was going to use it. The next morning started like any other in this house. Too many voices in too tight a space. I came downstairs around 10 a.m., knowing full well no one would be waiting on me. Delaney and Mom were already at the dining table, hunched over fabric samples and catering estimates. Dad was absent, probably pretending to be busy in the garage so he wouldn't be dragged into choosing napkin colors. I moved quietly toward the coffee pot, but I didn't sit. I didn't need to. Here, Mom said, handing Delaney a folder filled with paperwork. These are the final walkthrough materials for the venue. Don't forget to confirm with the florist again. She's flighty. I poured my coffee slowly. The folder sat open on the table, pages spilling out slightly. One caught my eye, not because of its format, but because I recognized it. The floor plan, my floor plan. Down to the half-moon patio facing the lake, the tiered garden layout, the glass-paneled reception hall with split lighting zones. 2 years ago, I'd submitted that exact concept for an expansion proposal through West Bridge. It had been too expensive, too unrealistic, too ambitious. And now, here it was, front and center on my sister's wedding packet, with no mention of me anywhere. I stepped closer and asked carefully, "Where is the venue again?" Delaney didn't look up. "West Bridge Lakeside. Isn't it stunning?" I nodded. "Yeah, I know it well." Mom beamed like she'd just bought a house in Beverly Hills. "Your sister picked it herself. She's always had an eye for style." I stood there, coffee cooling in my hand, while a blueprint I had once been proud of was now just another backdrop for someone else's perfect day. A few hours later, I shut the guest room door and sat down at my laptop. My fingers moved quickly, pulling up Dropbox, searching archived folders, rechecking dates. The original proposal was still there. Same name, same layout, same design notes in the margins. They hadn't just taken a venue. They'd taken my work, my idea. They built their fantasy on something I created, and then tossed me out of the credits. I opened a browser tab and checked the firm's internal dashboard. West Bridge Holdings. Stakeholder status, still active. Estimated return, up 18% this quarter. Funny how things resurface when you stop letting people walk over you. I had just minimized the window when a text buzzed across the screen. A name I hadn't seen in 5 years. Thalia Brackett. "Can we talk for a second?" It's been years. My chest tightened, not with fear, but caution. Thalia and I had been inseparable in college, roommates, confidants, late-night Waffle House philosophers. And then, one day, she just stopped showing up. I stepped out onto the back patio, closed the sliding door behind me, and called her back. She picked up on the first ring. "Venna," she said, breathless. "Thank you for calling." I kept my tone even. "It's been a while?" "I know, I don't deserve this. She paused. "Your mom reached out to me after graduation. She said you didn't handle closeness well, that you cut people off when they got too near." I sat down on the bench, letting that land. "She told me," Thalia continued, "that you had emotional distance, that you'd never say it, but you didn't really want me around." The wind moved the patio chimes gently. I didn't speak. I let her keep going. "And I believed her. I'm sorry. I thought I was respecting your space, but now I realize I was just manipulated." There was a beat of silence, not awkward, just thick with years of absence. "I regret it, Venna. All of it." "I know," I said softly. "We didn't say goodbye. The line just went quiet." Back inside, I sat at the desk again and opened my notes app. I titled a new document, Reclamation Phase 1. Bullet by bullet, I wrote. Confirm ownership shares. Review vendor contracts. Reassign control of planning operations. Legal angle. Explore trademark on design. They'd taken what I built and turned it into another Delaney shrine. But they forgot one thing. I'm not the same little girl they used to crop out of pictures. And this time, I held the pen. They didn't just steal a venue. They revived the one place I was told I didn't belong. By the time the sun filtered through the blinds, I was already sitting at my childhood desk, still in the same t-shirt I'd worn to bed. My laptop was open, cursor blinking on the screen, the email I'd written the night before still fresh in the draft folder. I hadn't sent it yet. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to watch the world wake up, knowing I wasn't going to sleepwalk through this anymore. 10 minutes later, my inbox chimed. Subject, Revised Shareholder Distribution, for internal use only. I clicked it open, expecting a generic quarterly breakdown from West Bridge Holdings, but what I saw made my heart pause. My name, full and spelled correctly, was listed first. Equity, 38%. Highest stake, majority vote. I blinked twice, reread the numbers, and sat back. This wasn't just a symbolic investment I made years ago, back when I still believed showing up early and staying late meant someone would eventually see your worth. I didn't just have a voice in this. I had authority, real, legal, notarized power. The venue Delaney had chosen, the one they all applauded her for, wasn't hers to control. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. I closed the email, opened the stakeholder dashboard, and sat quietly for a moment. The screen glowed soft blue, peaceful and steady. Beneath it, the menu. Vendor approval, contract overview, emergency action protocol. I didn't click anything. Yet. Around noon, I changed into jeans and a dark green blouse, tied my hair back, and left the house. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I figured they wouldn't ask. The cafe was a few blocks down from the river. I picked the table farthest from the sidewalk and ordered an iced tea I had no intention of drinking. The sun was warm on my arms, but I barely felt it. My thoughts were racing faster than my pulse. Then I saw him. Rowan. He hadn't changed much. Maybe a little more sun on his skin, maybe a few more lines near his mouth. But the walk was the same, confident without arrogance. That used to be my favorite thing about him. He stopped when he reached the table, hand half raised like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to sit or just say hello and leave. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He took the chair across from me, smiled nervously. "You look good." "I know," I said simply, not as defiance, just fact. He laughed softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's been 6 years. Give or take." I wanted to say something earlier, but it felt off. Too late. Too much time passed. I nodded. "You're here now, so say it." He exhaled and leaned in. "I had the ring, Venna, back then. I was ready. And your mom? She pulled me aside one day, said you weren't interested in marriage, that you didn't believe in love. She made it sound like it would embarrass you if I proposed." The words sat between us like static. "She said you'd say no." He didn't say it cruelly, just plainly, like he was trying to deliver a truth he didn't want to carry anymore. "I didn't ask," he added. "I just let it go." I stirred the ice in my glass. "You believed her." He nodded once, slow. "Yeah, and I shouldn't have." We sat in silence. Not comfortable, not hostile. Just real. "I loved you," I said. He looked up, startled. "I did. And I would have said yes." There it was. Too late and still true. He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "I'm not," I said. "If that hadn't happened, I'd still be chasing after people who never asked what I wanted. Now I know exactly who they are and who I am." We didn't hug, didn't promise to meet again. We just stood and nodded. Closure doesn't always need applause. Later that night, back in the guest room, I logged in again. This time I didn't hesitate. In the corner of the screen, a button blinked. Access level upgrade. I clicked it. Admin status confirmed. Vendor override permissions granted. Contract freeze authority activated. I hovered over the event control tab. Freeze event operations, pending review. I wasn't ready to press it, but I would be. Because this wasn't Delaney's dream venue. It was mine. And I was done building castles for other people's crowns. The cursor still blinked on the screen long after I'd shut the laptop. I didn't press the button that night. I didn't need to, not yet. Just knowing I could was enough to quiet the chaos in my chest. At least until the next family meal. By late afternoon the next day, the dining table was set for 6. My mother, always a fan of overcompensating through food, had laid out a spread that could have fed 15. Chicken salad, dinner rolls, deviled eggs, even her lemon tart. The one she only made on holidays or when she needed to butter someone up. Everyone was already seated when I walked in. I didn't say anything. Just pulled out the chair at the far end of the table, unfolded my napkin, and sat. The air was too sweet, the kind of cheerful that makes your skin itch. Delaney was chirping about centerpiece options, while Dad nodded like he was hearing any of it. I let them talk. When Mom stepped away to grab something from the kitchen, I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I placed it gently on the table, right in front of Dad. Didn't speak, didn't make a show of it. He picked it up, opened it. His expression changed almost immediately. I watched his eyes dart from line to line, then land on the signature at the bottom. His own. It was the bank transfer authorization, the one that moved my wedding fund into a joint account Delaney used for her planning. Delaney went quiet. Mom re-entered the room, carrying a pitcher of iced tea. She caught the silence first, then the look on Dad's face. "What's going on?" she asked, setting the glass down a little too hard. I spoke calmly, like I'd been rehearsing it, just showing Dad the form he signed, the one that moved the inheritance Grandma left me into Delaney's bridal account. Mom's face didn't flinch. "You were never going to use it." "That wasn't your call to make." She let out a sharp exhale, laughing like I was being ridiculous. "Venna, this again? You always find a way to twist everything back to yourself. Your sister is getting married. She needed help. You have a career. You're independent. And frankly, you've always been—" I waited. She finished it. "Jealous. It's in your nature." Dad looked down at his plate. Delaney froze. "And I?" I didn't blink. "Jealous," I repeated. "Of being erased from photo albums? Of being the contingency plan in every family decision? Of being useful when it's convenient and invisible the rest of the time?" Mom straightened her back, her voice firmer. "You don't understand what it means to be part of a family." "No," I said. "I understand it too well. That's the problem." The table sat in stunned silence. I stood, slow and deliberate, collected my napkin, and folded it neatly on the edge of my plate. Then, without raising my voice, I looked at my sister. "You say you didn't know. But the silence you kept, that was a choice." Delaney looked down. "Please don't ruin this for me," she whispered. I leaned forward just enough to meet her gaze. "You already did," I replied. "You just thought no one would notice." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry in the hallway. I went upstairs, closed the door to the guest room, and opened my laptop again. The venue dashboard loaded instantly. My access level still said Admin. Status, Event Live. I hovered over the same button I'd seen the night before. Freeze vendor access, confirm. My hand stayed still. I wasn't ready, not because I was uncertain, but because I wanted them to think they were still in control. I wanted to watch what they built on borrowed pieces of me, knowing the foundation was mine. They thought I was bitter because I went quiet, but what they never realized is that silence has a cost, and I'd been paying the interest for years. The next morning started later than planned. I let the sun pour through the blinds until the room felt too warm to ignore. After a quick shower and a bland granola bar, I didn't finish. I grabbed my laptop, slid it into my bag, and left the Airbnb without a word to the host. I wasn't coming back after this. The venue was across town, nestled just beyond a gated community that looked like it was designed to impress in-laws. I gave my name at the front desk, and the assistant, a young woman in a headset, barely glanced up before handing me a clipboard and visitor badge. "Vendor access tour, right?" she asked. Something like that," I said, taking the badge. The venue manager was delayed, which suited me fine. I wandered through the garden hall, pretending to check lighting angles and floral setups. In reality, I was following the sound of Delaney's voice. "James surprised me with this venue," she was saying to her bridesmaids, who were huddled around her like she was royalty. "He said I deserved the best, and honestly, this place just screams us, doesn't it?" A few of them nodded enthusiastically. One of them, Callie, I think, added, "He's spoiling you. I mean, this place must have cost a fortune." Delaney beamed. "Well, that's what happens when you marry a man who gets what you're worth." She laughed. The rest followed. I didn't interrupt. Instead, I pulled out my phone, slid to record, and let the video run for 10 seconds. That was enough. I walked past them without saying a word. Delaney saw me, but her expression didn't shift. If anything, she smiled wider. Back in the car, I parked under a tree and replayed the clip. Her voice, crystal clear, Her lie, loud enough to echo. This wasn't just embellishment. It was theft. Not of property, but of identity. She took everything that had my fingerprint on it and claimed it like it was a bridal accessory. Another thing handed to her because the world had always done that. Not this time. I opened the Westbridge portal, logged into my admin account, and navigated straight to the operations panel. Status: active event. Name: Shaw Milford. Wedding date: tomorrow. I clicked into the emergency protocols and uploaded a PDF. My shareholder proof: 38%. Verified, validated. I clicked Stakeholder Action, Override Planning Access. Then came the prompt. Reason for event disruption. I typed, stakeholder action due to breach of ethical alignment and false public representation of venue ownership. My hand hovered over the last button. Confirm? I thought about everything. About the check my parents signed without asking. About the slideshow I was never part of. About Thalia and Rowan. And about that stitched name on the doll in my suitcase. I clicked. A soft ping. Event status: cancelled. Vendor network alerted. Contract revoked. Just like that, the machine stopped. No fireworks, no storm. Just a simple line of text that closed a chapter they never let me write. By the time I returned to the Airbnb, my phone was already buzzing. I let it ring. I sat on the bed, kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of wine, and turned the volume to silent. Somewhere across town, vendors were calling in, caterers were freezing deliveries, the planner was probably having a meltdown, and Delaney was realizing the crown she thought she wore had always been borrowed. By late evening, the calls turned into texts. Lorraine first. Call me now. Then Delaney. Why would you do this? Everything's falling apart. Then, more desperately, I'm begging you. Just undo it. Please. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked onto the small balcony, glass in hand, watching Sacramento glow in the distance. Not mocking, not mourning, just still. They never imagined I'd fight back. They never thought the quiet one would hold the match. But when a castle is built on stolen bricks, it only takes one pull at the right seam for the whole thing to crack. I didn't ruin her wedding. I simply reclaimed what was mine before they dressed it in her name. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. Something about letting go, truly letting go, keeps you upright even when the world expects you to break. By the time the sun began to stretch across the Sacramento skyline, I was dressed, bag-packed, and headed to a co-working space near Midtown. No one at the front desk paid me much attention, and that suited me just fine. The building was half full, the usual crowd of consultants and freelancers sipping oat milk lattes and staring into glowing screens. I chose a corner desk by the window, one where no one could look over my shoulder, and set up my laptop. It took less than a minute to log into the burner email account I'd set up the night before. No name, no profile image, just enough anonymity to deliver the truth without the usual performance of confrontation. Subject line: for your information only. I paused for a second, then began filling in recipients. Lorraine Kane, Delaney Shaw, Jared Milford, a handful of relatives, the wedding vendors I had contact records for, and a few carefully selected people from Delaney's work circle, the ones who mattered most to her image. Attachments: 3 files. The first, a screenshot of the official Westbridge cancellation notice, time-stamped and clearly showing my name as the majority stakeholder. The second, a scanned transfer slip, $12,000, wired 3 years ago, when Delaney's spa was circling the drain after a failed promotion campaign. My name, her account. The third, screenshots of our WhatsApp conversation from that week. Delaney: I don't know how to thank you. I won't forget this ever. Me: just get back on your feet. That's enough. It wasn't petty. It was proof. I typed my message. No theatrics. No emotional appeals. This isn't revenge. It's correction. This is to ensure that next time you tell the story, you'll remember all the parts you tried to forget. Then, without ceremony, I hit send. There was no pop-up, no "are you sure?" confirmation. just a soft whoosh, and silence. I leaned back in the chair, letting the afternoon light warm my face. Around me, people kept typing, editing, pitching. The world moved, like it always does. But for the first time in a long while, I wasn't trailing behind it. Back across town, the ripple started to spread. I wouldn't know the full extent until later, but I imagined the chain reaction like dominoes. Mom yelling at Dad, "Get her on the phone!" Delaney scrambling to call the florist, trying to uncancel what couldn't be undone. The planner crying into her iPad, the caterer putting trays of filet mignon back into the freezer. And Jared realizing the woman he was about to marry had lied to everyone, including herself. I got one reply, from my Aunt Sheila. Subject: I'm sorry. Venna, I always suspected. I never had the full picture, but I knew something wasn't right. I wish I had said something sooner. I believe you, and I'm proud of you. No fluff, no excuses. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed the browser, deleted the email account, and shut the laptop. Outside, the street buzzed with weekend energy. People walking dogs, pushing strollers, laughing like the world hadn't just shifted underneath one family's perfectly curated photo wall. I stayed at the desk another 20 minutes, watching the cursor blink on a blank document I never ended up writing in. Not everything needs to become a memoir. Some stories just need to be told once. Back at the Airbnb, I packed the last of my things. One small suitcase, one carry-on. The stitched doll went in carefully, wrapped in a sweatshirt. The letter from Grandma folded beneath it, the handwriting still crisp despite everything it had been through. I looked around the room one final time. The sheets were slightly wrinkled, the curtains still drawn. Nothing left of me here. No scent, no noise, no trace. I didn't leave a note, didn't notify anyone I was leaving. My flight back to Seattle was booked for 9:15 the next morning. I would land before noon, take the light rail home, and order the same Thai takeout I always did after a hard day. Routine has its mercy. That night, I sat by the window, sipping the last of a cheap bottle of wine, letting the quiet hold me like it never had before. I didn't need their apology. I just needed the silence to finally tell the truth out loud. A month had passed since I returned to Seattle, and the air had changed, not outside, but inside me. Everything felt quieter now, still, not stagnant, like the calm that settles after a storm no one believed would come. I'd unpacked slowly, deliberately, not just boxes, but thoughts, feelings, memories I never made space for before. My new apartment sat on the 4th floor of a walk-up in Capitol Hill. Nothing fancy. Bare floors, clean white walls, wide windows that let in more light than I knew what to do with. The kind of space you could breathe in. The kind of space where you could hang what mattered. One wall remained blank for weeks. I kept staring at it, unsure if I was saving it for something or protecting it from something. Then, one Saturday, I knew. I'd spent the morning at a local print shop, enlarging and reprinting family photos I had scanned from old albums, ones where I had been cropped out, or left out entirely. The gaps were always obvious once you knew where to look. A hand on the edge of a frame, a strand of hair that didn't match Delaney's color, a birthday party where the number on the cake told me I was there, even if the camera never caught me. When I got home, I laid each photo on the living room floor. For every missing version of me, I added something, an outline, a shadow, a caption in gold ink that read simply, "I was here." Not for their benefit, for mine. That afternoon, I hung them in a grid, 12 pieces, a timeline of deliberate remembrance. Standing back, I took it all in. Not revenge, not nostalgia, just recognition. A few days later, I received an invitation from my firm, a black tie gala at the Fairmont, honoring clients and partners who'd expanded into new markets. I'd helped 3 of them do just that in the last quarter. I stared at the envelope on the kitchen counter for a long time before opening my closet. The dress I picked wasn't expensive. It wasn't from a boutique. Just something soft and dark and well-fitting. No sequins, no slit. No need for a stylist. Years ago, I could still hear my mother scoff. Let's not waste a stylist on you. Emily's the one who needs to shine. Back then, I thought she was right. Now? I looked in the mirror, smoothed the sleeves down my arms, and said softly, I don't need to shine. I just need to stand. And I did. 2 days later, a voicemail landed in my inbox. My mother's voice, brittle under forced sweetness. Hi, sweetheart. We miss you. Your father wants to talk. Your sister is, well, she's having a hard time. I didn't delete it. A few hours after that, another message arrived, this time from Delaney. People are talking. I've lost 5 clients this week. I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know how to fix this. I opened the message, typed one sentence. Then, maybe stop painting over things that weren't yours to begin with. I hit send. No punctuation. No name. That night, I opened the drawer beside my bed and unfolded my grandmother's letter. I hadn't read the back before. The paper had been folded that way for years, probably sealed by time and forgetfulness. But there it was. A short note. Make a home of your own, even if it's made of the pieces they left behind. I placed the letter beneath the photo collage. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I poured a glass of wine, opened the balcony door, and stepped into the cool air. Seattle pulsed below, streetlights flickered, buses hummed, someone was playing jazz through a cracked window nearby. It didn't welcome me exactly, but it didn't shut me out either. It was just there. And maybe, finally, so was I. I didn't win anything. I just stopped playing their game. And maybe that's what healing really is.